Hi everyone, just a quick reminder that if you want to follow along the journey of making this dress in real time with me, both on Instagram and YouTube, then please consider supporting me on Patreon. You get to choose how much to pledge per month, and you will receive live updates both on my close friends' Instagram stories and access to all of the YouTube videos right now. Hope you enjoy the video. So I've had a go at draping the skirt overlay. Also, I should just mention that I've spent like a whole hour trying to cut these edges as neatly as possible since they won't be hemmed. But as you can see, that's about as good as it's going to get. I did that for all edges except for the bottom edge, which I just left. It's got like a white ridge. I've just left that so I can sort of see where the end of the fabric ends, I guess. So the thing is, the way I've cut the netting means that I don't actually have enough length in the front completely. So what I've tried doing is overlapping these two parts. So draping this up here, draping this over here, and hoping that those overlays will actually cover the bottom part of the hem down here, and it will create this sort of overlapping effect, which I don't mind, and it also means that it will save me from having to sew this free edge to another free edge somewhere. So rather than sewing them together and having like a distinct line as to where the seam is, I could just have them drape and you wouldn't be able to tell exactly where the ends of the netting pieces are. So that's my thinking for this front portion of the skirt. Coming around to the side, I do have to take into account that I've got the opening, the side opening, which I need to work around. So what I've done is I've sort of just pinned half of the netting is over here, half of it is in the back, pinned where the skirt overlaps in the side back, and then I've just sort of tried to pleat this, but I'm not loving it. I'm not loving these pleats at all. So still need to work around that. Coming around towards the back, this portion here, I'm thinking that would just gather up or pleat up into there, and it would splay out onto the ground like that. And then for the excess fabric down here, I would use these offcuts to gather and bunch up at the center back to create that puffy effect at the back. So that's my current thinking. It's a lot harder than it looks. I'll come around to the other side, which I have not touched, but you can sort of see that I just pinned half-ish. What I did was I had to look and see where the end of the netting actually meets the ground, and then that's where I pinned this point. So all of this fabric will help to cover up the hem of the front portion of the skirt. And then for the back, I already know that there's plenty of fabric here, so I don't mind there being less fabric here to gather up, and then I can just use the excess and gather that up here. Because the other thing I'm thinking, sorry that this is all just a brain dump of information, but the other thing that I'm thinking is along the train of the skirt, I want to actually secure this down, this netting layer down to the actual hem of the skirt, just so it always looks perfect. Is a bit less maintenance when actually wearing this, if I actually sew it down and then it stays in position. If I have a lot of fabric gathered up here, it means that there's a lot of fabric down here to sew into the hem of the skirt. So that's why I'm trying to keep that part light, so then there's less hand sewing and figuring out how it all works at the bottom of the skirt. if I don't have that much fabric up here. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm getting there, just very slowly, and I also have no idea what I'm doing. So I'm just going to continue playing around with draping it at the front. I'm thinking of removing these pleats and just trying to make it, I don't know, somewhat seamless and less like, oh, there are actual gathers and pleats in there. I just want it to look like the fairies just draped it onto the mannequin and it looked perfect. That's the look I'm going for anyway. I'll give you a full view of what I'm dealing with. And I'll come around to the side as well. But yes, quite the mess right now. I've also got the bodice over here, which I showed in the previous video. Bodice draping will happen another time, but all the tulle or netting for the bodice is just up there. But we're getting there, And here are my sketches. I keep looking at these sketches because they're so pretty, and this is what I want to get to eventually. I did set the goal of me finishing the base of the dress this year, but I really would like to get around to doing the flowers and vines this year as well. But it's taking a long time, but end goal. Okay, so update. I like the crisscross draping in the front, so I definitely want to keep that. I've removed the pleating on the side because that was ugly. What I have done is I've just gathered up all of this fabric at the back, literally at the centre back, only on this side though, not on the other side. So that's just going to flow down like that, and I could hand stitch that down to the hem later on. As for this side opening part, I've pinned just in there of where I want it to end. Now what I'm thinking with this part, and this could be a big mistake or not, and I think I'm going to go with it because I can't think of any other options right now, is to literally chop down this, where my fingers are, all the way down, and then have this part towards the back just be free flowing, so that would allow me access into the pocket and also to get the skirt on. And then this section here towards the front, I would somehow attach to this part here. The other thing is I have pinned just to the side back panel piece where I want this netting to end, I guess, so I know how much I've actually got to work with in the front versus the back, because I do like the amount of fabric that's going on towards the back. That's all excess fabric that I could use elsewhere, but it's this sort of coverage that I'm after. I want there to be, you know, some sort of pleats, gathers, folds in the fabric along the train, but not too much to the point where it's just overwhelming. So I think that's the right amount. So I think I'm going to actually find whatever that point is on the opposite end, on the opposite side, and then go from there. But I am definitely thinking of literally snipping down this edge here, because I do need some way of accessing the pockets and getting the skirt on. And that's the only way I can think of right now. Hey again, so it's been a couple hours. Update on where I'm at with the draping. So I decided to forego any sort of draping, pleats, whatever, along here. I just want to keep the front as flat as possible. Actually, I'll start around the back and explain what I've done. So the back is just all gathered up at the center back, and then towards the sides here, I just made a snip all the way down, like I said I would. And then I just pinned where the pocket is, so I have access to the pocket and I won't get caught up with all of this netting. And then all the way down to the bottom, I pinned roughly where I want the hem to be, and I did the exact same thing on the other side, although the other side is a little bit different in that this overlay is a bit shorter for some reason, whatever. But again, same thing where I pinned along there and also pinned where the pocket is over here. So that's how that looks. If I pull that out, you can see. Okay, so that's the back portion of the skirt. Now for the front portion. Like I said, I decided to make this front part as flat as possible. Now, given the restrictions I have with how much netting I have left over, which is not much, I had to settle on this sort of asymmetrical overlay thing. So basically it's those two off-cut pieces from when I cut the sides down, and then I just sort of put them like this. So they're draped on the bias. They come to the point where the overlay of the skirt finishes, so when I go to tie that around, and then this part just, where is it? This part here just drapes down, but I did pin it to where I want it to overlay with the back portion of the overlay. But so that's where it's pinned on the side seam, and then this part here just sort of flaps about. So this flappy part is quite a bit longer than this flappy part, which I haven't actually trimmed off this edge yet, the edge with the ridge on. I don't mind that it's shorter on this side. It's not that noticeable, so I'm just going to leave it. I do need to trim off this ridge, so I will do that eventually. As you can see, this part here is long enough to curl under, so I've just pinned where it will curl under, so I know where that's going to lay. And then for this front portion, I've just pinned the top part for now, and this just hangs like that. Likewise with the other side, I've just pinned that at the top, and then that just hangs like that. But the thing is with this side, this overlay is actually a bit shorter than the other one, so there's not that much overhang at the hem. There's only that much, which I've just pinned there. So there's this whole portion and that whole portion of the skirt which is not covered by any netting overlay. So what I've done is I went to my scraps over there, pulled out these two pieces, which were probably cut from when I did the sleeves. Anyway, I'm going to cut these into a nicer shape so they're not, I don't know, they look like weird shapes right now, and then pin those pieces to cover up the bottom portion of the skirt where they're not currently covered by any netting overlay, and then that should be it. And then it's just a matter of sewing this all down, and I'm going to start at the waist, sew all of this down, and then I can worry about this. I don't know if I'll get around to doing the hem today, but at least I have an idea of where this is all headed, so I guess it's good progress even though it's slow. So yeah, going to do that now. So, update for you Instagram folk. I'll start with the back. So this is the back, how it's looking so far. I just gathered up everything towards the center back, and then this just splays out like that. As for the side pieces, I actually snipped down so there is an opening to get the skirt on and off, and also to access the pockets. So you can see that that's pinned there, and that just goes all the way down, and that's pinned down there, roughly to where I want it to be. Likewise with the other side. If I come around to the front of the skirt, with the remaining netting overlay that I had, this is what I came up with. So it's just draped on the bias, pinned in the center front. These pieces just drape down like that. And then for these pieces here that go down, I've just pinned where there is like overhang of the overlay. The other side, I didn't have that much netting to work with. As you can see, there is only this portion that's pinned down. The rest of it still is left uncovered by any sort of netting. So what I did was went to my scraps over there, pulled out these two pieces, and now I'm going to figure out how to put those pieces on here and cover up this portion of the skirt and that portion of the skirt. Come around to the other side here. I need to trim off this white ridge edge. I did it to that side, but I didn't get around to doing it here. But this just sort of drapes like that. And then again, I've pinned where the pocket is, and that just drapes down and then is pinned like so. And then I've yet to figure out this part. That's for later. But yeah, that's where it's at. It's been slow progress, but I'm getting somewhere. For these pieces here that go down, I've just pinned where there is like overhang of the overlay. The other side, I didn't have that much netting to work with. As you can see, there is only this portion that's pinned down. The rest of it still is left uncovered by any sort of netting. So what I did was went to my scraps over there, pulled out these two pieces, and now I'm going to figure out how to put those pieces on here and cover up this portion of the skirt and that portion of the skirt. Come around to the other side here. I need to trim off this white ridge edge. I did it to that side, but I didn't get around to doing it here. But this just sort of drapes like that. And then again, I've pinned where the pocket is, and that just drapes down and then is pinned like so. And then I've yet to figure out this part. That's for later. But yeah, that's where it's at. It's been slow progress, but I'm getting somewhere. So I've just spent like maybe half an hour pinning down all along the front of the skirt. So I just snipped all the excess fabric, turned it under so the raw edge is actually on the inside, sandwiched in between the actual skirt and then the overlay, topmost overlay fabric. I did have to pull on the netting a bit to move it out of the way so I can have the hook be free, and it has caused a little bit of puckering, but that's okay. And yeah, so it's just pinned to there. So I've made sure that it's pretty much okay along the bottom edge. So now I'm just going to hand sew all this down so I can actually use the pins and start on pinning the back portion of the waist properly. So I'll hand sew all of this now. I am probably going to put it under the machine as well, but just some hand basting to get rid of these pins. So I just finished hand sewing all along the top edge. I might have just gotten a bit carried away since I ended up doing back stitches the whole way along, but I thought if I'm doing it now I may as well do it properly, because taking this off the dress form and doing it by machine would be a big job. So I am going to do it at some stage, I think, because I just don't trust my hand stitching, but at least it's quite secure, so I can leave it up on the dress form for the time being while I sort out everything else. I'm not sure if I want to get started on the back, simply because I've just been standing for so long and this requires more standing. Maybe I'll work on the hem instead. I don't think I showed, but here's what I ended up with along the bottom. So I don't know if you can see, but there's the piece that I pinned in just to fill in the gap, and I've also got another one somewhere in here. This one's more hidden, which is good, but it's somewhere in there. There's a hidden piece using the leftover scraps that I had. So I think maybe I could work on the hem. What I'm thinking is turning this under and then hand sewing on the underside. It is a lot of work. Oh, and as for these parts where they're pinned, I'm probably just going to do a few tack stitches and then hope that with any of the decoration going on top, like all the flowers and vines, that can cover up any of the tacking stitches. And no one's going to be looking too closely at the hem anyway, so that doesn't matter. But yeah, I might just tack under the hem. I'm still not sure what I want to do. Like, I do want to do this part, but I just don't want to stand. I'll think about it some more. Okay, so I pinned down the back. I folded over the raw edge like I did with the front, pinned it down so there's actually the fold on the top. These pieces go just beneath there, same on the other side. I kept these parts relatively flat and then it's just pleated down the back. There was no rhyme or reason to my pleating, it's literally just bunch it all up and pin. I'll just explain what I did. So I actually pleated it right up towards this hook, but then I realized it probably caused too much hassle trying to get this bar attached to the hook of the bodice. So instead I moved all the pleating down so there's enough space for the hook to get under the bar. Yeah, time to hand stitch that down. Again, I think I'm just going to do back stitches all the way along to do it properly. Yeah. Okay, I've finished sewing down the back. So there's a close-up of my hand stitching all along here, and up the other side, and there is enough space for the hook to get under the bar. And that is where I am leaving it for today, because my fingers are sore and it is the end of the day. But I think that was actually very good progress for today. I did want to do the hem as well, but not today. So the hem is still just sitting like that. Everything is pinned around the front, so at least I don't have to pin anything. It will just be cutting and sewing. As for the back, this whole back portion will need to be pinned eventually, but I think my focus now is getting the front all sorted, and once the front is sorted, I can progress to the back. Yeah, one step at a time.